You come from a family that I've seen described online. I don't know if
Mhm.
you describe it this way, but you come from a family that people have described it as a Illuminati family.
Mhm.
Is that how you would describe it?
That's not how I would describe it in the same way. I'll be honest. I think it's just a popular catchphrase that a
Yeah.
lot of people are borrowing into. Now, I come from a family that they believe they are descendants of the old gods. That's the
Really?
best way to say it. That they believe that they are carriers of a seed line that gives them the divine right to rule. And that is what gives them justification spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, scientifically to dominate the lesser species known as humans. Humans literally means a lesser species of man. And they do not believe they are a human in the same way. They believe they are something other than. And that's descendants of this hierarchical ruling species that is from the celestial realm that descended in the days of Jared and came down and procreated with the daughters of men, and that they still trace their seed line back to Gilgamesh till Nimrod. And so this is what the dynastic families believe they have, is a superiority in their genetics on one side and the ability to commune with the divine. And so their children are progenitors of these, some might call them abreactions, mutations, these skills, psychic abilities, that kind of stuff, all variants of it. And so they raise up their children in this path with which involves a tremendous amount of shattering of the soul and the identity so that there's compartmentalization within. And it allows them the ability to train their child up in a way that makes them conducive towards the family. I call them the family. That's what I called them. You know, it's a better word for mafia than anything else. But no, we didn't call ourselves, like my family wouldn't ever call themselves Illuminists,
Yeah.
right? They're Luciferian. That's for certain. They worship Hallel and Shahar, as he's really known, but different reasons than what people are ascribed to, you know?
Interesting. All right. So I want you to start from the beginning of what your childhood was like and just walk us through this. But before you do, you just said something that I got to ask you before I forget. Are what they believe, do you believe is true in the sense of uh, them being able to trace back their lineage to the fallen?
Now, we're going to get more into this. We're going to unpack it. But one of the things I wanted to do, like I said, is with the Epstein files, this is the blessing in it, is that more people are waking up to the truth. More people are trying to figure out, how can anyone do this to children? How could they sacrifice them to Baal and Moloch? How could they do this to babies? How can they laugh and describe what a baby's intestines taste like? How could they laugh at a little girl who was, saying that God was that she prayed to God every night, and they're laughing about this in an email, and that she believes in Jesus, and then wanting to dress up as Jesus next time she's violated. And then it goes on to say that she prayed and she believes that Jesus is protecting her life. And then Jeffrey Epstein says whoops, which I think we all know what whoops means, that she was killed. And you wonder, how can people be so evil? But then you got to tie it into all this gene editing and all the DNA stuff that was been doing, the scientific experiments, him having at Harvard, having his own office at Harvard when he's not even part of Harvard, working with MIT with gene editing. There's a lot to unpack with it, but you've got to understand where this goes back to. I've talked about it over and over, that what the Bible says, that there were Nephilim, meaning these are beings that are created from fallen angels who lusted after women and essentially took them, we'll say, and their babies ended up being these hybrids. They are demonic and human hybrids. Now we're going to continue to unpack this as I'm going to do a number of videos about it. But this is Nathan Reynolds, and he is part of that. And actually, there is something in Jeffrey Epstein's emails that was sent to him, or he sent to someone, and it lists all the different families and the bloodlines. A lot of people think about the Rothschilds. They think about the Rockefellers, but there's more than that. The Orsini family, and guess what another family is? The Reynolds family. So continue to listen to this, and I'm gonna bring this full circle so you can understand that we are not dealing with flesh and blood. We are dealing with completely demonic beings. Those who are that are either Nephilim, that is their bloodline, or they're actually fallen angels, or they're people that have sacrificed themselves to them so in order for them to get favor, in order for them to rise, for them to get power, for them to get wealth. And this ties directly back to the word of God. And you can see now what people thought was conspiracy theories or, thinking too deep in weird Bible stuff. No, it's not. The Bible says that the Nephilim, okay, not only were they in the days of Noah, but after. A lot of people think that the reason why, it says that that man was corrupted. All right. It says that they were corrupted during the time of Noah, that every single person was corrupted. But people always think of that as sin. No, the Bible is actually talking about their actual DNA, that Noah and his family were the only ones left who were actually fully human. And that is why God decided to completely wipe the earth, not only of humans, but of animals. He saved some, but of animals because they were mating with animals. They were mating with animals. And you see those depictions all over ancient temple walls, hieroglyphics. You'll see these in different carvings. These are the things that we're dealing with. And so those same bloodlines are still here. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, guys. We are in a spiritual battle. And that's where we got to keep our eyes. Yes, we see the news. Yes, these are different things in the Epstein files. But that is not the most important thing if we do not bring it back to the real battle that we're in.
Some of them, yes. I believe they absolutely can.
Do you think that's in your blood?
I believe it was, yeah. I believe it is.
Yeah.
I believe there's no way to physiologically necessarily, my blood's been augmented a lot over the years. I volunteered for a lot of stuff and said yes to everything that they could ever give me that would make me better than what I was. I was on a desperate quest for relief. And so I volunteered for all kinds of stuff. And I volunteered for stuff that was transhuman in its nature.
Really?
And it augmented me quickly, and that was brutal because then there's this, I lived a lot longer than I expected. Let me just put it that way. I did not think I would ever see 18. Never even comprehended the idea that I would ever know a family that wasn't this other thing where the powers of control and access were given through the abuse of children. That's what I knew as normal. And I knew that people were corrupt and monsters and were willing to devour each other to rise to the top. I understood what wolves were when they ran the world. And so it was very hard for me to get to a place where I could believe that I could be redeemed because I had witnessed enough of things in the families that make it seem like I am irredeemable forever. And it took me, there was one book that made a massive difference in that, which was called The Gospel to Every Creature. And I believe it's written by John Darnell. It is very hard to find. I have a copy, but it's been scrubbed. And it's the good news to Nephilim, vampires, and transhumans, and it helped me to see that maybe I wasn't anathema, that maybe just because I have this seed line in me, that maybe just because I'm a progenitor of the offspring of the fallen, that it doesn't mean that I'm not able to be redeemed, because no matter what, by blood or by belief, I believe that we have a Messiah that overcame and we can overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony and not living our lives when faced with death. And it was that powerful encounter with the Almighty, with the true judge of all the earth, who I can make an appeal to, who can give me a new bloodline, and that's what he offers to everyone. Wow. And so I do believe that's available to those that come from these families.
That's wild.
And so a lot of how it works in the families is you got two main approaches. If you've got unlimited access to wealth, power, like really, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about power, unlimited raw power, where a phone call, the phone book, is far more powerful than the bank account, because it's who can open doors to power anywhere else in the entire world. So you can leave with nothing, but then you can go build. And if you need the phone book, there's a price to be paid. And the price to be paid is generally one of your children. It seems bizarre to some, but a child is generally a chosen child out of the family, is given over as an offering to the family. And they're the ones who's going to go through this left-hand path. They're going to experience the desecration of their soul, their identity, and they're going to become an agent for the family that is owned completely. And there's like a legal trustee that is given over to it. There's a board of directors that sits over it. Like, these are real legal confines for how the wealth is distributed out there. In order to build your empire, you've got to be able to go prove yourself. And where I was born, That is a place that's a high place. Mount Humphreys, it's a volcanic peaks that sit there. The top of it is where the Hopi Indian and a lot of people had gathered forever to commune with the fallen. They believed that the sons of the sky would come down every season at the winter solstice, and they would abide from the winter solstice to the summer solstice there. This was a place where they would give their daughters over to them. This is Hopi mythology, like 101. You know, they would make these Kachina dolls, which were an effigy of what I would say is a watcher angel that would come, and the daughter would be given to him, and she would place that over her bed throughout her life, you know, and that's her familiar spirit. That's where I was born into. And the people that still practice that old religion, that's the way I refer to it, they still do this. And they still take their children up there to give them over to them on these high days. And so I was born into that, and I was born through that seed line and into that ritual magic world.
Now, I just explained previously what the Nephilim are, but I want you to listen to this because this is a much better explanation. And then I want to show you how this is still happening now, how it ties into all the things that we are seeing finally coming to light to the masses. Many people have been awake to it, but that is a small percentage, a small percentage. And that's those of us who've been looking at these things, and we're not surprised. We're not surprised at all. Because we've been beating the drum, trying to tell people. And even a few months ago, when I just feel like God called me to just start talking about all this stuff and bringing up Nephilim and all the evidence of God's word throughout the world and how they have tried to deceive us from our school books, how NASA, I mean, the list goes on and on. All in an effort so that we don't realize that everything that we are dealing with today is 100% spiritual. The elites believe it. And in fact, somebody said, let's stop calling them the elites. Let's call them the pedo class. So the pedo class believes this. And that is why, again, people are wondering, how could they do these types of things? How could people do this? They're not people. They either are fallen angel, Nephilim, or again, like I told you, the people that are trying to obtain power, wealth, and status through them, by giving their children to them or collecting children for them, so that they can then sacrifice them to these ancient gods that are in the Bible. The very ones we see in the Old Testament that they were sacrificing, that they were worshiping and sacrificing their children to, that God had told them 20 odd something times to stop doing it because it never went away. It has always been here, but they learned to operate within the shadows.
Who are the Nephilim?
The Nephilim are the byproduct, the offspring of fallen angels and human women, creating a hybrid being, which is soulless, in my opinion, known as the Nephilim. They shouldn't be here. They were never supposed to be here. And the springboard to this, Eric, is Genesis 3:15. My hat is off to my good friend Gary Stearman, who lectured me in this years ago. Genesis 3:15, you've got Adam and Eve in the garden. They've just blown it. They've known they've blown it. They are hiding from the Lord. They are terrified. You've got the dragon. You've got Hasatan, the shining one, the Nakash over here. And then in the center, you've got the pre-incarnate Jesus, the pre-incarnate Messiah, who says to the dragon, and this is imperative. In fact, in the book, I spend lots of time unpacking Genesis 3:15. Jesus, the pre-incarnate Christ, says to the dragon, your offspring will be at war with the offspring of the woman. The proto-evangelium, the offspring from the woman, will crush your head, you'll bruise its heel. That's the entire biblical narrative. And it's not taught in seminaries, and most churches have no idea. But that's the whole thing. It sets up everything.
So what you're introducing is the concept of satanic offspring.
Yes, absolutely.
They hide in God King bloodlines. They hide in generation in bloodlines. Now, there's always been a seed war. Genesis chapter 3 describes a seed war, the first of 400 messianic promises of King Jesus. Genesis chapter 3 is describing is 3:15. There's always going to be a war between our seed and your seed. And then you go over into the book of Daniel. He says, hey, the head is as gold, the shoulders are as silver. It goes down to brass, and it gets down to iron and clay mixed. And it says this whenever he interprets it in the book of Daniel, and their seed shall mix with yours. Talking about at the end times, that mixing of the seed's going to be a big priority. So if it's transgender, if it's transhuman, it's all about trans, which is transgression.
What did he say there? In the end times, this is where the battle will be. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. You have got to take the word of God seriously, because they do. They do. I'm seeing different people, like even Elon Musk says he believes the teachings of Jesus. And I see so many Christians excited, like, oh, he believes. Demons believe the teachings of Jesus. They know it's true. They're fighting against it. Elon Musk has also said that by 2030, there'll be no more cell phones, that everything will go to the Neuralink in your brain. That they're summoning the demons with AI, which is not artificial intelligence. It's not alien intelligence. It's angel intelligence, which I have a whole video I'm going to do for you that is really going to explode that for you. But I want you to also understand how these things, it's not just with our children. When I told you about how they were actually mating with animals, this is where we get the bestiality from. Guys, that's where we get it from. They were able, because of this Nephilim DNA, in which actually Jeffrey Epstein talks about trying to create this hybrid. I forget which animal he was trying to do this with. It's in the Epstein files. Again, like I said, we're going to comb more through those things. But he was trying to do this. Again, you have to understand what they're trying to do with DNA. Why was Hillary Clinton so pressed to find get the DNA of Gilgamesh, which I'm going to play for you right after this one. But understand, all those depictions of these beings that were half dog, with a dog head and a human body, or a human body, a human torso and head, and then a horse body. We were told, even the Sphinx, okay, with this, they were supposed to be like a human head, which there's some controversy with that I can go over. Human head, and then that lion body. These were real beings and deities that they worship. They told us this was myth. They told us that this was fairy tale. They told us that this was just, these are things they believe, but pay no attention to it. They didn't really believe these things. Yes, they did. Every civilization depicts it, depicts all of these half animal humans. Anubis, okay? The ancient Egyptian god was a dog, he's depicted with a dog face and a human body. They were an entire race that lived. And just because you don't see them now, I'm going to play something right after this one that's going to help you understand why you don't actually physically see them as giants, why you don't see them depicted as this anymore. Doesn't mean they don't exist underground, because there's a whole world underground, okay, that they've built. This ties back into the flood. But watch this.
The Cynocephaly, and the most famous one of them all, St. Christopher, the dog-headed humans. Now they say it was just from a mistranslation in Latin, or a depiction of a foreigner from faraway lands. That is the excuse the mainstream gives us for all of the depictions of St. Christopher as a dog-headed human, or as history accurately refers to them as Cynocephaly. Now there is a reason why, all across this realm, much like giants, these Cynocephaly are depicted in near exact detail. It was not some elaborate prank from a world that was not supposedly connected. It should be quite clear. They depicted exactly what they saw. Our true history is far stranger than fiction.
Like an animal, but then I've seen men become not people.
Like literally
not
change.
be the people. Yeah.
Okay.
And there is like lycanthropy, and there's these understandings of what the watchers are capable of doing that most people are just woefully ignorant of. And that's why they're perishing. It's because they lack a basic understanding of history. And one of the predominant understandings of what a watcher, specific class of celestial beings, is capable of is augmenting itself. They can shapeshift. That is by their nature. They're literally called metaschizmazotoi in the Greek, in the New Testament. And it's because he says it's marvel not, because Hasatan, you could say like transforms himself. That's a good word for it. But he shapeshifts himself into an angel of light. And his messengers, his apostles, disciples, they do the same thing. And he's like, this is because they are capable of becoming anything they want to be in order to deceive on one side of the equation. And that's what they'll do. And so when people start engaging in these necromantic rituals and other stuff, and they start to seek the embodiment of these celestial ones, they can get these things on them and in them, and they can't contain them. And some of these guys who are messing with this stuff, who don't come from the bloodline, are incapable of cohabitating like a parasite and they feed off of each other and they can't handle it. And so that's why families are recruited from these bloodlines and children are recruited out, even if they don't know anything about it. Like you said, the vast majority of people who come from these bloodlines, there's a lot of muddying of the waters. There's a lot of purity that's been changed. There's a lot of half-breeds. There's a lot of quarter breeds, right? There's a lot of people that don't know this stuff and they start to get into lesser magic. And all of a sudden it's like the doors of everybody open to them. But that's why. It's because they can host these things better. Whereas those that don't, they get taken over by this stuff and they can't change back. They can't return, in a sense. Like, people become completely possessed and are incapable of expelling the darkness after that. And who do you turn to? You're going to go to the Catholic guy who's all into the same thing that you're into, like, most people don't understand what a real deliverance is required for somebody that has gone down this far down where they are consuming people. Like, that's a deep, devastating psychological, spiritual shock, physical, your liver, like the health. This is why I'm huge into health, because I've physically had to try to find ways to help people who have done all of these things. Like, the consumption of human blood does horrific things to the human body, and this is a major practice within this. These families do drink blood. That's why we have these vampire class of people. It's not some kind of myth. People consume blood in order to extend their life force.
And just so you know, he's been talking about this for years, exposing them, eating people, drinking blood, all of these things. And now you're seeing it in real life. The masses are finally seeing it through the Epstein files. And guys, we only got 2% of the Epstein files, 300 gigabytes. Did you know there's nearly 15 terabytes of the Epstein files that they're not going to release? We will never see them. But just in the 300 that we got, you are starting to see the cracks open, that people's minds are finally open to the truth that's out here. Now, I'm going to play this video. I've played it before by Ashley Hayes. It is amazing. She woke me up to so many things. She's here on YouTube as well as on TikTok. She's everywhere, actually. But Ashley Hayes really breaks down and ties us back to Gilgamesh, Nimrod, and why we went into Iraq and all of that. You've got to understand the details. Okay, this is going to help tie this all together, that the masses have been asleep. They have us thinking about everything else, but these are the things that they are focused on, because they are preparing for the new world order. Now, before I play that, I just want to show you really quickly, if you didn't see my video earlier, but I just did another shirt that has a map. You guys know I have the Great Awakening map that shows all the kind of conspiracy theories. And if you're just in like the Epstein files, right, it's just a tiny little bit. Like, there's a whole world of conspiracy and things that people have been researching that you need to be aware of. But this is something that I thought you guys will like. Now, this is my new world order map, but this relates directly to what we're talking about. We're talking about COVID. We're talking about gene manipulation, all of these things that we're seeing coming out. So this is, and I have this, it says men here, but I have it for men and women. But look at this. Hopefully you guys can see it on the screen. I'm going to look over here because I have it on. This is bigger over here. Okay, so we have the COVID and 5G. We have the Gates, okay, Bill Gates Foundation, the pharmaceutical companies. You have Monsanto. Okay, if you know about them, DARPA, Silicon Valley, how this all ties together. Dr. Fauci is on here, our hospital and healthcare system, and what they're trying to do. And in fact, once you're done with the Great Awakening, this is where you go, because this is the new world order. This is how they're trying to create it, okay? By manipulating genes, by bringing out the Nephilim, because that is how they see themselves ruling and reigning over us. With, when they say there'll be no more elections, and how we're now seeing how the governments around the world, Prince Andrew was arrested. Of course, he was released. Nothing happens to them. Just like we've seen did Epstein really delete himself? Okay, we've gone through that evidence. Ghislaine Maxwell, she even in prison. We've seen the person they brought out this month earlier before Congress on video. It's not her. Like, even facial recognition people are going on, body language experts, plastic surgeons are now speaking out and saying it is impossible for that to be the same person. All right. So this is just taking you through all the things that they've done. But then I have on the back, believe your eyes and not their lies. They want to do everything to make you not believe any of this is real. That's just crazy. You're a weird conspiracy theorist. Well, the term conspiracy theorist, that started with the CIA to make people who were speaking truth, investigating these things, learning these things, Well, to make it seem like they're crazy. But I have it in different colorways. And again, I have it for men and women. If you want to support the work that I'm doing over here, every single video is getting hit. And I have to comb through, delete clips, try to change words. I have no idea why. And yesterday I spent like 3 hours. We spent 3 hours trying to get that video up yesterday. I ended up having to take the very last clip off and put it on Patreon. They wouldn't even let me put it up for members. And nothing was really said in there. Nothing was really said in that last clip, but these are the games that they're playing. So if you want to support the work that I have here, you can go to realmelanieking.com. The link to that is below in the description box, as well as other ways you can support me.
Welcome to part 2 of the real reason that we invaded Iraq, because you and I have been lied to our entire lives. In part 1, we talked about how an archaeologist discovered the ancient city of Uruk in modern-day Iraq, and then he discovered the tomb of Gilgamesh, and coincidentally, a few months after, we invaded Iraq. Well, buckle up, because this goes so much deeper than just his tomb. Now for this video, we have to go back to the days immediately following the flood, and this brings us to Genesis 10. Genesis 10 is the genealogy of Noah. Genesis 10:1 tells us that the 3 sons of Noah were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Down it says Ham had Cush, and then Cush had Nimrod. So Nimrod in the Bible is Noah's great-grandson. Now why am I talking about Nimrod? Because Nimrod is Gilgamesh. In the Bible, we learn that Nimrod established a very large kingdom. He was essentially the first king of the world, and it also says that he ruled over all of the other sons of Noah. Now, because of this, there were many different peoples that would write about Nimrod. It was their personal account of who Nimrod was. The Babylonians wrote about him, the Assyrians wrote about him, the Hittites wrote about him. It says even in Palestine, tablets have been found with this man's name on them. He was obviously the most popular hero in the ancient Near East. And of course, the Sumerians wrote about him in the Epic of Gilgamesh. I'm gonna go back to Genesis 10 to find out about Nimrod's kingdom. This is Genesis 10:8, and it says up at the top, he began to be a mighty one on the earth. We'll go back to that verse later. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. Verse 10, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. That's southern Mesopotamia. From that land, he went to Assyria and built Nineveh, and there's more. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce them. Let's bring that verse to life a little bit. Here is a visual of Nimrod's kingdom. Down here, we have the Tower of Babel. We have Uruk, where he was found, or Erech in the Bible. The city of Ur, which is actually where Abraham was born, and then the land of Shinar. So pretty large kingdom. We're going to go back to Genesis 10:8 because it says he began to be a mighty one on the earth. This is the exact same phrase that God uses when he describes the giants in Genesis 6. So it says, there were giants on the earth in those days and also afterwards. So God is specifically telling us that the giants, these demonic hybrid beings, survived the flood. When the sons of God came into the daughters of man and they bore children to them, those were mighty men who were of old men of renown. The Greek origin of the words describing Nimrod are exactly the same as the Greek origin of the words God used to describe the giants in Genesis 6. It is worth mentioning that the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Old Testament, also says that Nimrod began to be a giant upon the earth. Now, Nimrod is talked a lot about in the book of Jasher, in the Apocrypha. And before anybody comes for me and says that we shouldn't read the Apocrypha, this is in the Bible, Joshua 10. Is it not written in the book of Jasher? 2 Samuel 1, indeed, it is written in the book of Jasher. The authors of the Bible are referring us to other additional sources so we can find out additional information. Back to Jasher, it says, and they brought him offerings, and he became their lord and king, and they all dwelt with him in the city of Shinar, and Nimrod reigned over the earth and over all the sons of Noah, and they were all under his power and counsel. And all the earth was of one tongue, we know this, and words of union, but Nimrod did not go in the ways of the Lord. Here's what's interesting. He was more wicked than all the men that were before him from the days of the flood until those days. And when you read about Nimrod, this guy was disgusting. He was wicked. He was perverted. He mated with animals all the time because he couldn't control himself. He was absolutely deplorable. Now, Nimrod actually wore the garments that Adam and Eve wore in the Garden of Eden. They were passed down to Noah, who kept them on the ark, and then he passed them down to his sons, and then obviously his sons passed them down to Nimrod. And it says here, he gave them those garments through the love for him, and Nimrod grew up, and when he was 20 years old, he put on the garments. And Nimrod became strong when he put on the garments, and God gave him might and strength, and he was a mighty hunter in the earth. Yes, he was a mighty hunter in the field, and he hunted the animals, and he built altars, and he offered the animals on them before the Lord. Now, there is no written explanation for how Nimrod became Nephilim, how he became a demonic giant. So this is my personal conclusion based upon what I've read. We know that Nimrod, when he was ruling, he did not go in the ways of the Lord. He was more wicked than all the other men, but in his early life, he was obedient to the Lord. And when he put on the garments from Adam and Eve, God gave him power and might. So I think that all just got to his head. I think as he aged, he started to abandon the Lord, and he started to serve Satan. And what does Satan do? He takes everything that is God's and he twists it in his own perverse and evil way. So I think as Nimrod started to serve Satan, Satan used that power that God had given him and somehow transformed him into this Nephilim, into this demonic giant and a completely wicked, horrible, grotesque man. Now, because he was Nephilim, he had access to Nephilim technology, and this is where we get into the conversation of the Stargate, which is a demonic portal. This is where it gets kind of crazy, and I know this is going to be a lot to take in for some people, but y'all, the truth is that we live in a spiritual world. There are angels and demons all around us at all times. They're just in a different dimension than ours. So beings like Nimrod, who were almost 2/3 demon, had access to all of this demonic technology that was beyond what we could even imagine. Now, this brings us to the Ziggurat of Ur, which is located in modern day Iraq. Now, this is just an artist's depiction of what we think it might have looked like. This is what remains, and it was believed to have a Stargate buried underneath. This is pretty much what they look like. It's a portal to another dimension. And so all of the demonic rulers, in the ancient civilizations, they had access to all this. They had this technology, and God tells us this in the Bible. And so when that archaeologist found the tomb, found the city of Uruk, that's a red alert for our government, because there's a lot of fallen angels that rule this world, and they are in power in our world. I'm not going to say any more than that. So when they got word of Gilgamesh or Nimrod, they knew what they were looking for. But who was in their way? Saddam Hussein. Because Saddam actually thought that he was a reincarnated version of Nebuchadnezzar. In the 1980s, during the Iran-Iraq War, Saddam Hussein became obsessed with the Babylonian ruler Nebuchadnezzar. Saddam saw himself as a modern reincarnation of Nebuchadnezzar, and to prove it, he spent millions building a massive reconstruction of Babylon. In addition, he actually tried to reconstruct the Ziggurat of Ur, so that means that he had the technology to the Stargate that was known to be below. Hussein either was able to get the Stargate working or learned something important from it, and Big Daddy America got concerned. The Bush administration recognized that Hussein had some very, very valuable, relevant information concerning the ancient history of the planet, either technology or text, basically confirming this, and he was going to release this to the public. I think that was a big part of the reason why the Bush administration went into Iraq, to stop him from revealing this information, and to also, of course, this is what I think, control it themselves. Now, all of this sounds crazy until you actually do some digging, and you find on the CIA's website a project called Stargate. Now, this goes back many, many years, because there are many Stargates all around the world. This document obviously is from 1993, and it covers the discussion of paranormal activity. The investigations described in this report involve a class of human capabilities generally referred to as parapsychological or paranormal phenomena. There are two general types, informational and energetic. There's a lot of weird stuff in this report, and it takes some time to read through, but you can find it yourself on CIA.gov. There's this story as well from 1928. You can find this on TikTok. This man was digging underneath Egyptian pyramids. He found a Stargate, went through it, and he actually brought people with him. Time was different, so he thought he was gone for only like an hour, but he was gone for 3 days. So when he went through the Stargate or the portal, he actually went back in time to when the pyramids were being built, and he saw UFOs carrying the stones for the pyramids. He saw giants, he saw aliens, he saw Nephilim, he saw all of it, and he said it was beautiful and lush and green, and he actually saw conveyor belts. I mean, they had electricity, they had power, they had technology back then from demons. And there's many stories like this, actually. There's stargates all over our world because our world was inhabited by demons and demonic technology, and we have pyramids all over the world. And it is no coincidence that America, a lot, part of the Grand Canyon is closed off. A lot of national parks are closed off to the public, and it's a huge reason why we are lied to, because it goes back to the Bible. So we all know what a Stargate looks like, right? It's a portal. And we also know that our government went into Iraq and took the Stargate that was under the ziggurat of Ur. This is CERN.
And that was the first Project Stargate. But now we have a new one, guys. Project Stargate is a massive 500 billion. That is actually very low. Trillions have been spent at this point. I did a report at the end of last year. It was, I think, at 2 trillion. I've got to get an update on those numbers. But it says 500 billion US billion dollar US artificial intelligence infrastructure initiative launched in early 2025 by OpenAI, SoftBank, Oracle, and MGX to build advanced data centers. As of 2026, the project is under construction with the initial sites operational in Abilene, Texas, aimed at powering large-scale AI models like ChatGPT, securing U.S. AI leadership and creating thousands of jobs. Well, I have deconstructed how none of that is true. We don't need any of this. AI does not, none of these companies make enough. They don't have enough reason to do this. There's not enough data that we're not using it. What are they trying to power? What are they trying to do with this? Now, we're going to continue to break this down in other videos, but Sam Altman was asked in an interview, why was it named Project Stargate? Why Stargate, right? And he said, I don't know. It just kind of was a name that stuck. Now, I want you to keep in mind as well, the year after we found the Stargate over there in Iraq, well, guess what? The movie Stargate came out to depict exactly what they found, to muddy the waters, to make people seem crazy if they talked about it and say, oh, you're talking about the movie. This is how they indoctrinate us. This is how they kind of ease us into what the truth is. And anybody who's actually digging deeper and speaks more truth, well, that's just some sci-fi. That's just some weird stuff. But I am telling you now, where else did the Project Stargate come from? Why would they name all the AI, the trillions of dollars? Why executive order was done to remove all guardrails, all restrictions off of AI? Why is it that we have the Genesis mission, which is bringing in all medical research? In fact, let me show you. So what is the Genesis mission? It was launched by President Donald J. Trump via executive order on November 24th, 2025. This mission is a Manhattan Project scale effort led by the Department of Energy. Its primary goal is to double the productivity and impact of American research and development within a decade by integrating AI into every stage of the scientific process. Now, with this, they're also bringing in, they're not only just bringing in all research, all medical research, academia, scientific research, all of that is now coming under AI. We are speed running towards this AI, this new frontier. And that they know the reason why is because we are in an appointed end. We are in the last seconds of the last days. Everything is ready for the beast system. And that is part of what Stargate is, because it's got to house all of our information. They need all of that Neuralink in our brains. They need to be able to capture all that data. So guys, I will continue to unpack this. Once again, make sure you're subscribed, hit the notification bell, as well as I will have the link below for realmelanieking.com, as well as other ways that you can support me. But with that, I will see you on the next one.